What's up, dudes and ladies universe? I'm actually geeky and nerdy, and in case you don't think that I'm geeky and nerdy, I'm wearing this Spiderman t-shirt while, of course, wearing Batman pajama bottoms. I just thought I'd throw it out there. Anyway, today I'm going to be talking about one of the funniest comics that I have ever, in my lifespan, have ever read. Usually I'm like the action and detective working. I have read some horror stories, not a whole lot, specifically in manga versions, like I've read Deadman Wonderland, Tokyo Ghoul, which was recommended to me by an old friend of mine. So if ever she's watching this, then hello, Crystal, to you and your husband. Hopefully that you're doing all is well in these hard times. But I honestly kept watching videos about this one for the longest time. Specifically, I'm a subscriber and fan of Professor. Why is that word hard? Professor Thorgy here on YouTube, and I've also seen some other people talk about it as well. But specifically, I really wanted to check into it myself, and so I have, and these comics are the funniest things you could ever read. Of course, they are for an adult audience. I just want to point it out really quick. These are the superior foes of Spider-Man comics, and they are the funniest thing ever. You have, hold on, I have to get their names from you. And this, of course, was spawned off of the superior Spider-Man one, if you remember, where Dr. Octopus put his brain inside of Peter Parker's body. Yeah, that happened. Anyways, we have Boomerang, Shocker, Overdrive, Speed Demon, and Beetle, who are the Sinister Six in this universe, and so they just try to decide to become the biggest foes of Spider-Man ever. Like, they really want Spider-Man to notice them, so essentially it's kind of like, notice me, Senpai! Except Senpai's just not noticing them. Weird to say because Spider-Man's younger than them. Still, my point applies. So anyway, they're kind of like, notice me, Senpai, so to speak. They're like, notice me, Spider-Man, I'm trying to hurt you and whatnot. And Superior Spider-Man is just going on, worrying about other things in his entire career. It begins with Boomerang, who is probably the biggest dick in this. Like, he does a lot of evil things, mostly to the Sinister Six, and then he gets his comeuppance, eventually later on. So, he talked about his old backstory about how he deals with Spider-Man and how he views Spider-Man in his own perspective. And there is like this sinister cult that keeps occurring to not only him but the other members of the Sinister Six. Maybe it's supposed to be a reference or something. And immediately the funniest moment when they do that, he's like, "Is that a sexual thing?" And then the guys in the robe goes, "Why do people always suspect that we're gonna do a sexual thing?" I'm like, that's clever. That's pretty clever. But during the entirety of the thing, they always try to make a plan. They always try to do something so they can, become like the biggest category villains and part of like Green Goblin and Hammerhead and Tombstone. But instead, they fail. Like, they are the worst villains in the world. And there are other stories about like other villains specifically that is a lot funnier than this. I think that one that is technically villain, villain plus superhero is a story by Donny Cates. I can't remember what it's called. A lot of people said it was really funny about these superheroes who have to like do deals and whatnot in order to be like on levels of like Batman or Superman. This feels a lot like that, except this was written by Nick Spencer with art by Steve Lieber. So the art in this is really good. I mean, it has like that cartoony vibe, yes, but it's still like really, really just damn good in all of this. I really like the covers. This one is really one of my favorites. But yeah, they try to intervene like with other supervillains and whatnot, and even the supervillains are like, "What the hell are you people doing?" And it's kind of like, we're supposed to be the villains of Spider-Man. Let's go fuck shit up. And then somebody else comes into the picture, slaps them upside the head, and goes, "You idiots! You can't do that." And they're like, "But we're villains of Spider-Man, so to speak." And at the time when I'm talking about this, the Spider-Man 3 movie is supposed to happen, which is called No More Home or whatever, like far for yeah, No More Home, I think it's called. where they are teaming up Andrew Garfield with Tobey Maguire and also Tom Holland. So that should be something in specifically. If they have these guys in there just for the hell of it, I'd love that. Just to have the superior force of Spider-Man going up against like Tom Holland or something, and then they fail, and then like all three Spider-Men sort of like berate them for being the worst villains ever. Because the Punisher shows up in here after a while, and everything gets explained. I don't want to spoil it, but everything is explained to what is actually happening. It's not just by chance that they were failing. It's actually a bigger villain working behind the scenes behind this, and I'm not gonna spoil it because it's really damn cool to experience. So the Punisher comes in, and basically I think he targets Boomerang, but then all of them are there, and he's like, well, hey, I'm the Punisher. Gotta pay the bills somehow. And so he tried to kill them, and then Iron Fist and Luke Cage, for no reason, gotta work up that Shang-Chi movie, son. I mean, you gotta get in there somewhere. So Iron Fist is also in this. I'm hype as hell for the movie. But yeah, Shang-Chi. Iron Fist and Luke Cage, which is a reference to, I think they were called Heroes for Hire back in the day. So it's basically a reference towards them, and they all have their different personas on everybody else in this. There's even something that is very adorable in this, and even it's something that I would love to. The character of I can't remember their names. I'm sorry. Speed Demon. I think he's also is a member of the Senate of the Sinister. I can't remember what they're called. The Avengers villains. They're not the Crime Syndicate, but the Squadron Supreme. I think he is from Squadron Supreme, if I'm not mistaken, or somebody very much like him is from Squadron Supreme. I just had to throw that out there. I was watching a video about the Squadron Supreme earlier, so it's kind of like stuck in my brain. But he ends up, I think, accidentally kidnapping a dog. It's a corgi, and I'm sort of like, well, I met my friend's actual corgi, and I also have a corgi blanket, and I'm like, do not harm that dog for the life of you, I will end you. And he decides, like, I'm going to do something terrible to the dog. I don't remember what it was, and he's like, I'm going to do something terrible to the dog. And then he's like, I can't do it to the puppy. I can't kill the dog. And I'm like, respect, bro. It's like, even if you're like insanely evil, like there is a point where you will not cross, and everything. Like they will beat people down, they will pummel you to death, they will probably roll over you or leave a dead horse head in your bed. But they have a limit to how evil that they go, and I thought that was very cute. I'm like, that's adorable. They also interview that they also have like supervillain counseling. Like they show some other supervillains, like some weirder ones of Spider-Man that did actually exist back in the past. That's what I really do like about this, because as a guy who who used to be a huge fan and went through like a character's backstory and whatnot, I used to look at comic book covers like a lot. Like back in the day, if I wasn't doing YouTube, I was like, and by doing YouTube I mean watching videos, I would probably be at a website, I don't remember what one it was, I think it was comic covers or something. I used to be looking down through that at comic book covers just for the heck of it because I love comic book art so much. And they would, and they reference like a lot of the other villains that Spider-Man has. And what's even cooler, and I just flipped open to this page so I want to talk about it, is that they even reference like the old school like supervillain like analogy, so to speak. Like it's like, oh, it should be a piece of cake, and then like on the inside it'll show stuff like this towards what the villain is, and then it's like, oh, well, not as hopeful as I thought it was. And also, during this, what I think is cute is that Boomerang is trying to rekindle his relationship with his ex-wife or whatever. So I think that is also something that's very awesome too. And they even reference that Beetle, the Beetle in this, the new Beetle, has a father who is not who you expect to be Daddykins. I'm not spoiling it, but I'm just saying, like, they reference another villain, a big villain for Spider-Man in this, who is Daddykins? Yes, he Daddykins in this. And I was like, even when I saw it, I'm like, I had the biggest, like, brain explosion shouting, what moment? When that came up, I was like, how is he a Daddykins? Like, this is the most violent, and I do have to say that, the most violent Spider-Man villain possibly ever. And she's like, Daddykins! And he's like, Honeykins! And I'm like, what the fuckykins? Like, I'm like, what? I'm not gonna show it, but it's like, what? And yes, there are moments where the gang turn on each other, like Shocker will turn on them, or Beetle will turn on them, or everybody will turn on everybody. And, and stuff like that. They even have Overdrive, which is a character I never heard about, but apparently he worked on the Avengers for a short time, so they do talk about him and where his powers come from and everything. I thought that was really cool. I'm like, I have no idea who this dude is, and then after I read it, I was like, oh, that's who this dude is, you know? So even through Evil Intention, like, they get to meet, like, the Chameleon, they get to meet one of the Thunderbolts, who's named Mach 5 or Mach 7 or something. They get to meet, like Hammerhead and a bunch of other people in this too as well. And they're all trying to acquire just one device. And like I said, they reference a lot of older Spider-Man villains. Yeah, they really reference a lot of older Spider-Man villains. Like, that is no joke. Like, everything in this is like the older Spider-Man villains and whatnot. Um, oh god, there is a reference that is harsh for Kiss fans, including myself. Um, I'm not going to talk about who the head is, but that's just harsh for Ace Frehley, dude. I mean, wow, the dude did not deserve that, so to speak. Um, but yeah, you would think that this would be all over within 2 volumes, but less to be known, it actually goes to even 3 volumes where it ends off on a massive good point slash cliffhanger with everything. And it is a massive cliffhanger because it ends with I don't remember who it is. Oh yeah, to do that, it's a new villain for the Superior Spider-Man and everything. And again, they reference older Spider-Man villains. This dude here, he's a Spider-Man villain, but he's old school, and I'm like, I love this. They have Matt Murdock in this. They have the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, and they all have their different views on the different supervillains that they meet in this, which is even villains and heroes. They all have different perspective on, which is great, and I love it. And the big freaking boss in this is really like the Superior saying, "Hat, get it." But one joke that I love in here is when they talk about the movie with Catherine Hegel and Gerard Butler, The Ugly Truth, and he's like, "Oh, I love that movie. Catherine Hegel is such a delight in it." And he's like, "I don't get that crap of shit." And I'm like, as a dude who honestly have seen The Ugly Truth when it first came out, like on DVD, that is, I'm kind of like, I kind of liked it too. I mean, I thought it was funny. I thought it was charming. I watched it because I was bored, and I actually ended up liking it a lot more than I probably should have. Go figure. But yeah, the end of this, the Superior Spider-Man does actually come into play, in his outfit. I really do like the Superior Spider-Man outfit, just for reference. And, the dude is kind of like, that he kind of comes into the new play, and he calls himself the Looter. I think that he is actually in Superior Spider-Man. And he talked about his rise to crime and how he became the Looter. And then he talked about how Spider-Man, and this is what I love, isn't Spider-Man. He's not the Spider-Man that he's used to. He's more violent, belligerent. He almost killed him. I mean, this is the dude after that event. Yeah, he survived miraculously. But it all talked about like the different viewings of Spider-Man and the Spider-Man that they're used to, and then when he actually gets into play, after they disband, after they're like, we're done being supervillains, this whole entire thing is stupid. And then some poor new dude called himself the Looter tried to come into it. He said that he's like a agent ancestor, well, not really ancestor, but sort of like a sibling from the ancestor. I don't know how it is. An old captain, basically. So think like Uncharted 4 reference in this. and that like he's like I can be the biggest thing because I was the son of a I was the agent son of a sea captain. I can do this, and it's in my family blood and history. And then Spider-Man comes in and goes, "Oh really? You mother!" And then he goes into the thing and he's like, "Don't fuck with Spider-Man. He will end you." And it's like, that was really like, how it goes from like a good comedy and then having that really down ending. I'm like, oh, like just as it ends, kind of thing. They show how bad that this Spider-Man really is to kind of like break it down to you. Like, yeah, these guys had fun. We now getting back into the not so fun territory, which I do actually like. There are some comedies that can be dark comedies. They can have their high points and whatnot, and then when it goes almost to the ending, you have that like really oh dear Christ moment. And that's what the series does very well. It's comedy, yes, and it's an adult comedy. It even has the rated T and up rating because of a lot of things that it references, a lot of adult humor, a lot of adult jokes, sex jokes, and whatnot. Swearing, yes, but I think it is censored in this. I'm not sure. I haven't read it in a while, but yeah, they do have a lot of like adult-oriented humor in this. But the ending, especially, probably makes it even worse because they don't want a kid seeing their icon Spider-Man, especially me, and I knew about this dude. Till the ending, when I read that and saw what like the other dude went to, I went that my Spider-Man did that. I was like, oh, because you got to remember, this is still Peter. He just had the brain replaced with Doctor Octopus. So Doctor Octopus is kind of like in the driver's seat, but it's still his body. So I just want to reference that. Do I think that Superior Foes of Spider-Man should still be read today? Hell to the yes. If you like comedy books, if you like things that like dark humor, if you are a fan of adult-oriented humor in your stories, hell to the yes, you should read Superior Foes of Spider-Man. It is so damn good. Like, how a lot of people say that you should always read a person's older work, and I don't know what Nick Spencer or Stevie Weaver has gotten himself into as of lately, but do I think that you should read these? Yes, yes I do. Especially if you like the comedy style of writing, and there are a lot of comedy books out there, but this one, especially with that ending, the freaking ending makes it even worth it. And I can see why a lot of people were like, this is a good book. This is a book you should read. Um, like right here by newsmedia.com, it says it's funny, it's smart, it got a lot of heart and gold underneath all that screwed up super villain bluster. And they're not wrong. Like there's a lot of things that happen to this team, but it is actually like for the better of the worst of this, so to speak. So again, yeah, I think that you would have a lot of fun reading Superior Spider-Man because, frankly, this book is awesome. The art and writing is a complement each other very well. Comicblind.com, and I have to agree. So, guys, if you're old enough, if you're old enough, I highly recommend reading Superior Foes of Spider-Man if you want a different touch upon your Spider-Man book, or if you want something different to read during these tough times, or if you just are looking for something different to read altogether. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. This is Rage Universe saying, and remember, you may always be a lesser villain, but don't let that new superhero find you, because they will make your life a living hell. And until next time.